he's not going to take it. It's a story of you. Tell us about it.
So Z2 Comics, so many people these days are very interested in the Senate hearings. There's talk of biopics in Hollywood, and there's been many documentaries and things being put together because it's very topical. As you know, in the 80s there I was fighting censorship, and it seems like the fight's still going on now. I got news for you people. It's always going to go on. It's always going to go on because every time they move the line back for us, we push forward and try to step over the line again. So, whereas somebody's always trying to fight censorship and push the line further. But this book was to tell the story not only about my visit going to Washington, but how I became that voice at that time. They want to know why me, how me, and I didn't have the answer. So they interviewed me, the writer did, extensively. You go in there is a picture of me in the crib. It's in the cradle, my first memory. But what I realized was that I was basically that kid, like many kids, who were told, shut up, know your place, keep quiet, my whole life. And I was always like sort of a background player, And then one day I just said, I'm tired. I'm not a background player, And I started speaking my mind, and I never stopped. So by the 80s, I was ready to go. I was the wrong guy. I was for them. I was the wrong guy at the wrong time. They did not want Dee Snider in Washington. They wanted someone far less articulate.
Thank you. And also, as a general question too, how was it using a comic book as your medium?
Well, I was a comic book kid, so that was really appealing to be represented in drawings. As a matter of fact, I talked about my love for Kirby art and things like that, and then they came up with these amazing Kirby designed covers with me in them, and I own these. Whatever the original, I can know what comics these were from originally that they mirrored. But I also knew that there are people receive information in different ways, or like to receive in different ways. Just like today, there are people who will only do books on tape. They will not read a book, but if you put it on tape, I'm there. They said, I'll put it on tape, I'll listen to it. So, I'm recording, I just wrote a novel, and I'm doing the book on tape. So these people, because they won't check out my book, it's just how they get information. There are people who like comics. There are people who want to see pictures with the words. They like a visual representation, and this will get the story. And it's a pretty important story, and it will get it to people who might not necessarily know it otherwise.
So having a graphic novel now, what do you like best when you're actually looking through the book and seeing the pictures and seeing yourself in it?
What I like best? It is the splash page in here where it's a shot that's an impossible shot. That's the thing about comics, is they get the impossible shot where I'm leaping in the air and it's like my hands coming up. That's like, that's so much larger than life, and I'm pretty large already. So seeing it captured in that way is pretty cool.
You've been an inspiration to a lot of people fighting against censorship and for free speech and everything. Is there anyone in particular who's been an inspiration to you with that?
That's a really good question. Wow. Did you just stump Dee Snider? Well, it's not so much that I haven't really thought about who inspired me, or of course, some of the greatest writers of all time and filmmakers. So I now have to think about it. But people like Mark Twain, he's my favorite writer of all time. And that guy, you really read all of his stuff. He spoke his mind, and he was eloquent about it. And that's part of free speech, is to say, you make your point without necessarily saying the most grotesque or brutal or ugly words, and still get your point across. That's part of free speech. But then, people like Mel Brooks, movies that he's done, like Blazing Saddles, we were just discussing that it couldn't be made today. It could not be made today. How have we got, that was 40, 50 years ago. Again, women don't have the right to choose anymore. We can't make movies like Blazing Saddles because people are going to be offended. So, and studying movies by someone like Mel, who is, no holes barred. I remember seeing that in a theater on 42nd Street, and me and my friend were the only white guys in the theater. and it's in the 70s. I am rolling, and my friend was sitting white knuckling it on his seat, and I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, "We could get our ass kicked." And I looked around, and everybody's laughing. Everybody. It's humor. And boy, with Mel, everybody's a target. Nobody's spared, and that's when it's fair. When everyone is not, no one group is being hit on. But at the same time, what happened to sharing a laugh and laughing at ourselves? So Mel Brooks would be another great inspiration. Now I have an answer next time. Yeah.
So along with metal, obviously in other forms of entertainment, we have seen battles with censorship. Later on in the years, you'll see that with like video games, movies were having censorship at the time. Other forms, other genres of music faced censorship later on after metal had their battle.
Yeah.
How pivotal do you think your battle with those vicious housewives went up to Washington?
It was pivotal at the time, but it paled in comparison to gangster rap. I mean, because some people think there was, if you look at the artists, there were artists of color, but there was no hip hop at that point. It was Prince, and it was, and Destiny's Child, but there was no hip hop included because it hadn't arrived. And shit, when Two Live Crew showed up, it was like, oh, I bet you wish we're not going to take it now. So it set, but at that time it already set the tone and set the stage, and it made people aware that it wasn't just going to be, we weren't going to roll over and just accept a bunch of people saying we couldn't sing the words we wanted to sing, and you were talking about the video games. Look, one of the things I pulled Grand Theft Auto from my kid when he was running over hookers. It was 8. He said, "Dad, check out this new game I got." And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm running over cops and hookers." I said, "What? What's the matter?" No, that's not for you. But that was the point I made there. It's not for the government to do the censoring. It's for the parents. Be responsible and check out what your kids are doing and say, "No, you're not ready for that. And when you are, I'll give it back to you." So that's an important part of where does the responsibility of and it's not even censoring. When a parent restricts a kid from seeing some information or whatever, that's a parent's job. Okay, that's not censoring on your kids. That's just doing your job. So, but yeah, games. It was so much after that the Senate hearings. It really went nuts. It was, like I said, by comparison, it was easy listening. Look, we're not going to take it. It's like everybody's go-to song at the karaoke, and I was on the Filthy 15. Filthy 15, V for violence. How violent is a song everybody sing at the football game? Come on.
Is there anything else that you want to tell us before we wrap up today? It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the questions. One thing people have asked me, he said, what is the biggest threat to censorship and to free speech? And that is people who don't understand what free speech is. And it's not the right to just say whatever you want, anytime you want, no matter how it affects or hurts people. That's not free speech. That was not the First Amendment. It wasn't the intent. You never were allowed to scream fire in a crowded movie theater when there's no fire. Because there will be a stampede and people will be injured or die in that. You are not allowed to post naked pictures of girls online that are, or guys for that matter, online against their will, because that's hurtful and that's not free speech. Don't stand behind censorship. That's being an asshole. Don't use censorship to cover up you being an asshole. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying, people out there. I said, if your words are deliberately hurtful, intentionally hurtful, and compromises someone's livelihood or life, or and some words are killing people, that is not your right to say those words. That's not the First Amendment. Know that.